If you can do as many of these as possible, that will increase your chances of making lots of money from sewing. Hey, beautiful people. If you are interested in sewing or you're already a sewist, but you want to know what are some of the ways I can actually be profitable from this entire thing, in this video, I'm going to share 16 of them with you. I'll probably end up sharing more than 16 because I'm sure I'll get some extra ideas along the way. So be sure to stick around to the end to hear what they all are. If you are a fashion design major, or maybe you're taking a sewing or dressmaking course or tailoring course, and you want to know how you can make money from this, you are in the right place. The first way that you can make money from sewing is very passive. And when I say it's very passive, I mean you do the work once and you benefit from it for a lifetime. And that is selling sewing patterns, specifically in the form of PDFs. This is something that you can give a person instant download access to, and they can print it, put it together, whether it is that they print it at a copy shop or they print it at home, they can put it together, or you can create physical sewing patterns that people can go into a store and buy. You can also collaborate with bigger pattern making companies and have your products being showcased under their brand name and sell in major fabric stores. There are several ways that you can get your PDF patterns created in this form or to be able to sell in this form. So usually it requires digitization. So first you will create your original pattern on pattern paper, freehand, and then you will have that digitized. You can digitize it yourself, or you can have someone do it for you. The first time I had any pattern digitized, I had it done on Fiverr. Fiverr has a lot of pattern designers and pattern digitizers on there, and they can grade your patterns in several different sizes, from small all the way up to 2XL, and that takes the work off of you. So you just pay them, tell them what you want, they'll ask you for the documents that they need in order to digitize your pattern. You give those to them and they will have them ready in a certain amount of time. Then from there you will just add your branding and put it on your website or put it on Etsy. It's that easy to start selling sewing patterns, and it's very profitable. It might be a small price point that you will start off with, but over time, it adds up. As Jamaican people would say, one cocoa full basket. So if you're selling a pattern for $5, and let's say you have 10 patterns in your store, someone buys 5 patterns at once, that's $25 in your pocket, and you only did the work once. Or you make the money back that you invested in getting the pattern made immediately. I started selling sewing patterns probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and I am still profiting from them to this day. There are people who discover me for the first time and decide that they want to buy 5 patterns at once. And you get to decide how much you want to sell your sewing patterns for. So if you want to sell your sewing patterns for $10, people will buy them if they are good enough or they see you as a credible source. Obviously, the lower you sell your patterns for, the more likely people are to buy for economical reasons. And like some people are just very cheap. The great thing about this, like I said earlier, is that it's a very passive way to make money. So you do the work once and you make money forever. If you don't want to pay somebody on Fiverr, you can learn how to make sewing patterns on your own. So I'd like to think that you already know how to draft patterns and everything on pattern paper. That's the first step. And then the second step would be digitizing it. And you can use Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape to do this. I started using Inkscape recently after switching from Adobe Illustrator, and I find that it's really cool. I love Inkscape. It's very simple to use. However, because I was using Adobe Illustrator before, it kind of took me some time to get used to Inkscape. If you want to check out my sewing patterns, feel free to check out my description box down below. I sell them on Etsy and I also sell them on QUAINT.com. If you join my Patreon though, you can actually get access to my sewing patterns along with loads of other perks and exclusive sewing content from yours truly. The second way that you can make money from sewing is selling digital products. So this might sound just like sewing patterns, but it's not. Think about how many times you've gone on Etsy and you see people selling printables, calendars, to-do lists, address sheets, attendance sheets, you name it. There are so many different printables and downloadables that you can sell on Etsy or just about any other platform that people are willing to buy. You could sell measurement sheets. You can sell practice sheets where people can sew on straight lines that you create. You can sell embroidery kind of sheets where people will trace off a pattern in order to be able to put it on their embroidery thing and embroider that. And there are also so many other facets of sewing that would require printable kind of items, sewing project plans. So somebody could write down the name of the project they want to make, the type of fabric they want to use to make it, how much time it's going to take them, what techniques they have to use, what kind of trimmings and notions, those kind of things that organized people love. You'd be surprised to know how many people are actually looking for that out there. So do some research and check to see what are some great things that people would need for sewing purposes that you can sell as an instant download on Etsy. It's something that's going to have a very low price point, even lower than sewing patterns, but it is very much worth it. Trust me. If you sell a printable or downloadable for like $1 and you sell 100 of them in a month, that's $100. $100 might seem like a very small amount, but think about it. If you never posted that printable or if you never put it up for sale, you could have had $0 from it. $100 is better than $0 the last time I checked. And it's passive because once you do the work one time, it can pay you forever. If you have a platform where you teach your work or you have like a community, a sewing community where you offer these kind of things, then you might want to be able to have a store like an Etsy shop or a listing of this product where you can be able to reference people and say, hey, if you want to check out my measurement sheets, go get it on my Etsy shop. That kind of thing. The third way that you can make money from sewing is creating sewing tutorials. Sewing tutorials on YouTube. And I'm sure there are lots of other video platforms, but YouTube is the best one and the one I'm recommending simply because if you get your YouTube channel monetized, you can be paid for the views that you get on your videos. Because once you're monetized, YouTube is going to start running ads on your videos and you're going to get paid from Google AdSense. If you can manage to grow your YouTube channel big enough, you can make a good buck on YouTube. You just have to make sure that you're posting good sewing tutorials with good lighting, good audio, and overall a good lesson that actually helps people to accomplish an end result that they want, and be consistent with it. If you can do that, you can really build a good revenue stream for yourself from sewing via YouTube. I have been making sewing tutorials since 2018. And when I first started, I was posting other types of content as well. I still post other types of content right now. But initially, when I was not monetized, I didn't really see much traction on my sewing videos, but eventually they started to pick up. There was this one video that really started to pick up about how to make a pattern for a spaghetti strap dress. That one started to pick up and it made me realize maybe people really are into my sewing videos. So I started making more of them. And sometimes I would post videos about Shopify and other kinds of things. And eventually, my channel got monetized. I posted week after week consistently without getting any money from it. And eventually I was able to monetize my channel, which was an awesome feeling for me. And because I live in Jamaica in the Caribbean, monetization is different for me in terms of the fact that I had to wait longer to receive my verification pin, and the amount of money that I earn from it is less than people who are in other niches. But it's still very much worth it, because if you can get enough people to watch your videos by making them really great, it's another passive stream of income, if you ask me. There's work that you have to do. Of course, you have to record, you have to edit, you have to post. But a video that's been posted 3 years ago is still making me the most of the money I make on my YouTube channel to this day. So give it a chance. If you want to post tutorials, whether it's embroidery or how to make curtains or how to make clothes, how to make swimsuits, how to make bags, draping, there's so many different types of tutorials that you can post. And if you can help somebody, that's a no-brainer for me. And I feel like tutorials are a great way to make money because you don't have to convince anyone to watch your tutorial. I mean, you have to have a good title and a good thumbnail and a good topic overall, but you don't have to convince somebody to want to learn how to sew something. They naturally have that desire on their own. So if you create good sewing tutorials that are in demand, you will get views, which means that you will get money. The fourth way that you can make money from sewing is selling sewing tutorials to companies. I didn't even know that this was a thing until one day a company reached out to me and they were like, we would like to buy 5 sewing tutorials from you, and this is how much we're willing to pay. And the amount of money that they were willing to pay me was appalling because not even YouTube pays me that much. So there are lots of platforms out there that will actually pay you money to create tutorials for them. And there are also platforms that you can put your tutorials on and actually earn an income from them. You just have to decide how much it is that you want to charge for your videos and think about the amount of work that you have to put into it, the amount of hours, the amount of research, and then give a decent price. There are companies out there that want to buy tutorials from you. And sometimes it's really just a matter of showing up and being consistent, because I didn't reach out to any of those companies. They reached out to me because I was posting consistently on my YouTube channel. And that was a wonderful opportunity for me. That made it possible for me to upgrade my gear. I was able to get myself an iPhone, a MacBook Pro from these kind of things where I would be able to edit my videos faster and record better quality videos. If you want to find some of these companies on your own, first of all, you want to build up a repertoire of sewing tutorials on a public platform. Then you want to check for companies and platforms that do tutorial type content. For example, I think Domestika is one of them. Creative Fabrica is one of them. Skillshare is another one of them. They will most likely have a link on their website that you can tap on to apply for their creator program, or you can send them an email and make a proposal, or you could simply just wait for them to reach out to you, because some of the greatest opportunities are the ones that you didn't have to ask for, they asked for you. And with that being said, check out my tutorials on Creative Fabrica. I'm going to be adding a link down below just in case you want to check out the videos that I've made for them. And you can also just check out their creator program at the same time. The fifth way that you can make money from sewing is by creating a sewing course or several sewing courses. I'm sure you've seen lots of sewists out there with sewing courses, sewing schools, sewing academies, online courses, in-person courses, where they share their knowledge of sewing with you. It's actually so easy to create a course, but somehow I still haven't gotten around to it. I guess I probably just need to make some time to create a course of my own. But once you outline the details that you want to share on a course and you sit down, record that content, edit it, you can put together a course and sell that to your audience. You will definitely have to have an audience first and create a community and build credibility and trust in that audience before you can start selling them a course. It really takes time and effort, but it's another one of those passive streams of income, because when you do the work once, you can make money from that over and over and over again. If you specialize in embroidery, you can make an embroidery sewing course. If you specialize in cushion making, you can make a cushion making course. And in that course, you could tell about the different types of cushions in different shapes, different fillings, how to put them in, different ways to close a cushion, different types of everything. There's so much that you can put into a sewing course. And once you get it done, like I said, the work can be done once and that's it. That's pretty much it. And I should take my own advice, because if it's not that hard, then why am I making it hard? You know what I'm saying? You can use platforms like Kajabi to create online courses. I am not certain of the other platforms, but there are loads of other platforms that you can create an online course on, and you just have to promote that. And once you start promoting that and you get your sales in, you're good to go. And the great thing about online courses is because it's video content, you can charge more for that than you would for a PDF pattern or downloadable, and you would certainly make more money from it than you would from YouTube or Google AdSense. The sixth way to make money from sewing is through ebooks. Ebooks are similar to online courses, but instead of putting your information into a video format, you would put it into a book format. So you would write down the steps of how to do whatever it is that you want to tell people how to do, and you would format that into a book. You don't even have to sell a big ebook. It could be a very small book that just tells people how to make 5 different things, and that in and of itself would already be an ebook. And you could decide that you're going to sell an ebook for $15 or $10 or $25 or $50, and if people see it as valuable enough, they will buy it. That is also one of the things that if you do it once, you don't have to do it again. And that actually brings me to a 7th way that you can make money from sewing, which is through creating physical books. You don't have to be a big top shot New York Times bestseller author in order to create a book. You can be a simple person, create a book, find a way to publish that book, and sell that book. You can sell it on Amazon, you can sell it on Etsy, you can sell it in your local fabric store, you can sell it on your own platform. If you have a big enough audience, people will buy it. So if you're the type of person who likes to write and you like to draw and do illustrations, consider making an actual sewing book, because the beautiful thing about books is that it doesn't have to be just words. It could also be pictures. The sewing book that I recommended in my last video, where I tell you about how to start your sewing journey, which you should check out, that's linked up here and in the description box down below. In that book, there are lots of pictures, and the pictures are beautiful. You could literally take those pictures with your iPhone or a regular camera or your Android if the quality of the camera is good enough, and then type up the words. Maybe you can get an editor for your book and have it printed and release your book and just be like, hey, I just released a sewing book. And if you have a big enough audience, like I said, people will buy it. The 8th way that you can make money from sewing is to host sewing classes and sewing workshops. This is something that I do and have done, and it's worked for me. I'm not really sure if it's my favorite kind of way to make money though, because I'm very introverted. And if I could work all the days of my life without having to leave my house or seeing people, I probably would. But I always feel so amazing being able to impact people in person with the knowledge that I have to impart. So that's why I do it despite my introverted personality. If you are good enough at sewing and you have people who want to learn from you, and let's say people are always asking if you do classes, that is an indicator that you definitely have the skill to teach. That means you would have the opportunity to make money off of that kind of thing. You could create a flyer, a digital flyer, a physical flyer. You could put those up around your community. You could put them up in a library. You could put them up on your Instagram, your TikTok, your Facebook, your YouTube, and get people interested in your sewing class. There are different ways that you can have sewing classes. It doesn't have to be in person. It can be online via Zoom. It can be something that you do on YouTube lives. Maybe it's a private YouTube and only the people who have paid will get access to it. So if you have a knack for teaching, look into doing sewing classes as a way to make money. The 9th way that you can make money from sewing is to create physical products and sell to customers. This is how I started out making money from sewing immediately. I made things, advertised those things, and sold them to people. But of course, if you're going to be doing this method of money making with sewing, you're going to also have to know things like marketing, packaging, customer service, and you will also have to make sure that you have an inventory. If you don't have an inventory, you can make things to order as people become interested in them. So that's how I started, and that's how I was able to start my sewing business on literally $0. I just made myself something. Well, that's not really $0, but I made myself an item of clothing, took pictures in it, broadcast it and let people know that, hey, this is something I sell. You can order this from me and I will make it in your size. And when people made their order, they would make a 50% deposit, and I would use that 50% deposit to buy the fabric, make their order, and then give it to them, and they'll pay me the rest, and I'll use that money to invest in more fabric and build the business over time. Even though it can seem like one of the most lucrative things to get into where it comes to making money from sewing, you also have to think about how much time and energy it's going to take. So if you're the type of person who doesn't like to work hard, this is probably not the best way for you to make money from sewing, because if your product blows up and people love it enough and it grows to a point where it's high in demand, you will have to make a lot of those. And sometimes, most times, in a very short space of time. You can always employ people and build a team to help you to make these things, but it's very labor intensive. So think about that before you actually get started. Another thing you want to think about when it comes to this is difficult customers and the fact that your losses are much bigger. If you make a product and it gets lost in the mail, or somebody doesn't like it anymore, or it gets damaged, you lose all of that money. That money goes down the drain. And if you have a grumpy customer, you will have to deal with them. Grumpy customers are honestly my least favorite part of doing this entire selling to customer business. You will also have to deal with possibly giving people refunds. Like sometimes people will not like the things that you make, or maybe you'll take too long, or maybe it doesn't meet their expectations, maybe it doesn't fit, and so you'll have to give them a refund. You'll have to deal with complaints, which can honestly be very discouraging when you put your all into something and a customer doesn't like it, or they have something bad to say about it. It can be really discouraging. So think about all of those things before you actually get into this. But this is a great way to make lots of money from sewing. It's just not passive, it's very active and very labor intensive. The 10th way that you can make money from sewing is by doing clothing alterations. This means that you're going to be altering people's clothes to make it fit them smaller, or fit them bigger, or maybe they need mending on their clothes, or maybe they need to transform it into something else. This is another one of the ways that I made money from sewing when I just started. I would alter people's jeans and shirts to make them fit better. This is a really awesome way to make money from sewing, simply because you don't have to do anything from scratch. All you have to do is just put some brain work into what needs to be done in order to make this item fit this person better, and then you do that work. You can even specialize in specific types of clothing alterations. So you could alter wedding dresses, you could alter gowns, you could alter tailor suits, and that right there will be you creating a niche for yourself. The 11th way to make money from sewing is through creating custom clothing. This is different from number 8, because for number 8, you'll be creating a product that you want to create and selling it to people. But this one is where people would tell you what they want to be made and you make it for them. So I guess you can call it like freelance dressmaking or tailoring. The only thing about this though is that if somebody comes to you with something that's outside of your skill set, you will have to disappoint them and tell them, hey, I can't make this. Or you end up taking that and then you will challenge yourself in a good way or in a bad way. I've taken on orders and customs before that are not really my repertoire, but I just do it for money and then I end up hating it. So I honestly would recommend that you find a field of clothing or sewing item that you specialize in and stick to that. If somebody comes to you with something outside of those realms, don't be afraid to tell them no. Don't be afraid to tell them that you can't do it. You have to stand your grounds, and that's one of the ways that you will create boundaries in your business. The 12th way that you can make money from sewing is through sponsorships from brands. If you have a strong social media presence, then brands will probably start reaching out to you asking if you can feature their products. Sometimes they'll try to give you a free product. And if that's something you want, then that's totally up to you. You can take whatever it is that you want. So there are brands that will pay you more money based on the size of your audience or the length of video that you're going to be creating for them. They could send you a product and say, hey, we're going to pay you $500 to talk about this on your Instagram or to talk about this on your YouTube. You get to decide your rate. So if you want to charge $2,000 for a video, that's completely up to you, and the brand gets to decide whether or not they want to work with you. If you just want to charge $100, that's fine, because money is relative to people. Some people think $500 is a lot of money. Some people think $500 is not a lot of money. So you get to decide your price, and you want to base that on the amount of work you have to do and what they're asking for. You don't even have to have a big audience, because there are a lot of companies out there who like to work with smaller influencers because they have a more engaged audience. The next way that you can make money from sewing is through creating a Patreon. Patreon is a platform that you can basically get people to subscribe and pay you a certain amount of money every month in order to receive certain perks and benefits. I have a Patreon. It's linked down below, so quaint. And on that Patreon, I create exclusive sewing content, exclusive sewing tutorials. On there, I put my PDF patterns, I add BTS and work in progress pics and videos, I do polls, I ask questions, and people decide whether they want to join that Patreon or not. Just like how you're going to decide if you want to join that Patreon or not, given that you decide to check it out. But those communities can be very helpful when you are getting into sewing or you want to be receiving a certain perk from a sewist. So if you're a sewist that has a good enough size audience who actually wants certain things from you, you can create your very own Patreon. Creating a Patreon is not difficult, and you don't have to pay a monthly fee. You just have to pay a percentage of the pledges that you get each month. And that can be a recurring income. Of course, there are going to be people who will cancel, and it will also be quite some work to get people to subscribe and join your Patreon in the first place. But that's why you want to make it enticing and add some good enough benefits and promote it as much as possible. You want to be really consistent on Patreon, because if someone subscribes and they notice that you're not posting consistently, they are going to cancel, and it's understandable why they want to cancel. You can check out lots of other Patreons as well for sewing, and they will give you inspiration on the types of benefits you can offer on your Patreon. The next way that you can make money from sewing is by offering one-on-one coaching or consultations or mentorships. This is pretty much where you give people information that's in your head. Whatever questions they have to ask, you can answer them, you can guide them along their sewing journey. If there's something they're not sure about, you can be their guide. There are people who are willing to pay lots of money to get this kind of thing. And if you are able to create a good enough package that will make someone to join your coaching program, this could be an income that you have month after month. Another way to make money from sewing is by creating content on Instagram, form of reels, and on TikTok in the form of lives. And I think you can also make money on TikTok from creating series. If you already like making content, or you already make content and you qualify to actually make money from these things, then I recommend that you set it up. Because if you can have, even if it's just a small change coming in from the content that you're already making, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I want to preface this by saying that if you do multiple of these things that I'm talking about here, you can create multiple streams of income for yourself, and multiple streams of income is really the best way to make money. If you just have one way of making money, then if that way of making money tanks, then you really have nothing to fall back on. So if you can do as many of these as possible, that will increase your chances of making lots of money from sewing. The next way that you can make money from sewing is by wholesaling to businesses. If you have a product that you can make lots of in a short space of time, then I would recommend trying to reach out to companies that want to buy those products. So you might find that there are companies that sell scarves, dresses, baby clothes, hats, bags. You can reach out to them and check to see if they are looking for wholesalers, or if they're looking for people who want to make these things in large quantities for them. If you make items in large quantities, it also means you're probably going to be selling them at a discounted rate than when you sell it to one specific customer or single customers. But you're going to be selling so many of them at once that your profit is going to be bigger. So reach out to companies, email them, call them, go in store and find out if they would be interested in your products. You want to share your wholesale terms with them and your wholesale prices, and they will buy from you if they want to. That is one of the first ways that I started making big money from sewing. And I started that in less than a year of taking sewing seriously. Like, I started selling my products in probably like 2015, and in 2016 I got my first wholesale order. That was when I really started taking sewing seriously. I got orders for several backpacks, several sweaters, and I made those, sold them to the company. And that's when I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't have to do this entire college thing. Like, let's ditch college and let's do this, because this is making us money. The next way that you can make money from sewing is by doing pop-up shops or trade shows or farmers markets. So essentially taking your stuff to a location, setting up a table or a tent and selling to passers-by. That's a very weird word to say, passers-by, but I think you know what I'm saying. When I was living in California, I would set up my table around Lake Merritt every weekend, put my products out, and people came to buy. And I made good money off of that. And every now and then I have shows that I go to, shopping shows, pop-up shop shows that I go to and sell my products. Some of them are a hit, some of them are a miss. But it's still great to go because it's a wonderful way to network and let people know about you. It's a great way to let people see your products in person, especially if you don't have a store and you're just an online shop. I really hope that this list was helpful, and I hope that you will do as many of these as possible to increase your chances of making money from sewing. If this was helpful for you, give it a thumbs up, share it with a sewing friend, and subscribe to the Sew Quaint channel. I will see you in the next one.